Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie. I am the senior editor here, and today I'm thrilled to bring you a guide on total experience for 2025. And joining me for that conversation are two very special guests. First up, I'm delighted to introduce Lee Jones, Director of Elevate Performance. Lee, thanks very much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thank you, Charlie. Nice to be invited. So I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And as I mentioned, we do have a second very special guest who I will introduce later in the conversation. But for now, Lee, let's kind of run through some of those fundamentals of total experience. So could you maybe kind of kick us off by explaining exactly what total experience is?
Yeah, certainly. So total experience in my mind, I've always known as TX. It's a holistic approach that integrates employee experience, EX, customer experience, CX, and user experience, UX. So bringing all of those aspects together so they make sure that all of the touch points are interconnected, provides a seamless, consistent experience, I suppose, for everyone involved, but more importantly, drives business and hopefully commercial outcomes. It's a practice that considers all three strategically and not in isolation. And many businesses will say we want to be employee focused or customer focused, and that isn't enough, because I think when you're focused on just one aspect or discipline, there's blind sides and own goals that can be scored, and I can share what some of those are later in my examples.
Yeah, and I think that's a great definition for exactly what total experience is. So thanks for that, Lee. And as you say, it's interesting to consider how it works actually kind of within business functions too. So I don't know if there are any of those examples that you can share.
Well, I think so. How do you actually make it happen? I suppose is the question. Because
Yeah.
as a senior leader, I might sit there and go, well, we're very customer focused, we're employee focused, or we make sure that our technology and our user experience is well thought through. And it's not just about saying, right, well, in the people team, you look after EX. And in the customer director or customer experience, you look after customer. And I think then when you tend to look at user experience, there's a collective of teams that might be responsible for that, such as technology or digital, product development, propositions, marketing. I think it's the way in which you bring those directors, those functions together. And that is not just enough to be able to say, well, we have joined up objectives. So, we're all responsible for these objectives. And there's a leadership behavior needed here as well, because it's really easy to stay in my lane and look after the piece of the pie that I'm responsible for. And I think when you truly have total experience, and I can give some benefits of that later, is when you have the team that work collectively, so cross-departmental collaboration, and that is right from the top. And I think when it isn't driven through the top, the problem is that you're then expecting it to happen as it gets further down the heart of the organization, which is where it becomes more difficult. So you've got to have a leader behavior of leaning in and collaborating for the wider delivery of objective. Cross-functional teams and projects is crucial to that. So how you then work down through the business and set the organization up in a way that representation is formed for all initiatives. If you think about some practice that probably everyone's familiar with, such as the creation of some employee values or a leadership charter, we might have a customer charter, and all of these values and principles and words that are designed for different groups of people. And I think where we've seen organizations, such as Disney, for example, fantastic organization that considers everybody in its strategic objectives, would be where we have aligned one set of behaviors, and that's just the way that we do things, and that is for employees and it's for customers. And when we think about mapping out customer journeys or employee journeys, that's done as a collective piece of work. We're going to talk a little bit more about technology platforms later, but there are technology platforms and ways of storing data that can be done brings all of those relevant parties together Therefore, our insight allows us to look right the way across the board and across all of those experiences. And not just the way that we collect data, but listening to feedback. So we listen to our customers and we listen to our employees and consider all of that feedback in the round. And I can think of many businesses that say, we're brilliant at listening to customers, we're brilliant at listening to employees. But one team does one bit and one team does the other. And it's about how you bring that insight together to solve common challenges and problems. And even better, don't make decisions that is right for one group of people and not right for another. So cross-department unified metrics is pretty crucial to that too. So not just the way that we collect data, but the way that we actually measure the effectiveness of how we operate. So hopefully that kind of brings to life a little bit of what it actually means. And I think some of that is quite strategic. There's also a set of behaviors, and I've mentioned the ability to lean in as a leader. I think it's also about making meaning for people and making sure that we join the dots and make sure everybody within the organization and outside the organization really understands our purpose, the way that we do things, and we communicate and have a join up in our brand that is seamless to all. And I think the other leader behavior I think is really crucial to that is leaders that can join the dots for people right the way down through the organization. So I don't know if that kind of helpfully brings together kind of what it is in detail, but certainly could look at some of the benefits of doing that in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It was greatly, and lots of great best practices there in terms of kind of inspiring cross-function collaboration, working on journey maps across departments, sharing metrics, sharing data, and those leadership habits, as you mentioned there. But that people watching might think, wow, that's a lot of things to bring together to really make sure that we're making total experience work across the business. So I guess we need to talk a bit about those benefits that you said to answer the kind of why bother on total experience question. So can you maybe talk to some of those benefits that you were just touting?
Yeah, and I think some of the benefits would be reasonably obvious, right? So, okay, we're going to have great employee experience because we've got employees in the mix, and we're focused on their engagement, on the experience they have while they work in this business, how they interact with each other, and the way that we set the parameters for their behavior. Yes, we're going to have great benefits for the customer, and obviously there's commercial aspects to that. There's commercial aspects to both because we have discretionary effort, we have efficiency, but in the customer space, if we are delivering strategic value for our customers, then of course they are advocating for us, they're recommending us, their lifetime value is increased. So those benefits I think would be reasonably obvious. But I think to lift that up a level, brand consistency just shows up in every single communication, everything I see, every advert, every story that I hear about their operating practices within their business just says that's the way they do things. Because there's a common core and everybody works to that same ethic. So I can think of great customer-centric businesses, and they're really well known for customer. But the question would be, are they really known for everything else? I think it allows those organizational leaders to have really data-driven insights. So if we think about the ways that we execute TX earlier, the platform, the data housing, and how we get feedback and insight out of the business, then I think one of the benefits is then we make decisions with data in mind, and we make decisions with insight in mind, more importantly. And I think the other thing is we can tend to design reward frameworks in HR or people that are employee aligned, but sometimes not conducive to driving good customer outcomes. So they can actually limit the amount of time or the way in which I can give that customer my best focus. And actually, we're working with business at the moment that you can see that you can also get the reverse of that problem, where we're so focused on customer, and let's say, for example, it's a CSAT measure, and actually I only get 2 CSAT scores a month, yet that's my reward and remuneration framework. So a blind side in thinking about that from an employee perspective, because we're trying to do the right thing for customer and trying to incorporate a way of measuring customer for everybody. So, and I think the same could be said when you're designing a customer experience approach. How well do we put that stuff into induction and make sure we're constantly reviewing behaviors and training to make sure that customer experience is forever thought through. So I don't know if those examples are useful, but there's certainly a couple of experiences in mind where I think silos in the business might be doing what they think is the right thing, actually scoring own goals across those three elements.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lee. Again, a really great and detailed answer there. And there are a lot of best practices actually for within that answer for how businesses can really get total experience off the ground and that mindset together. And on that note, I do want to bring in our second special guest, as teased earlier, and that is Michelle Cuch, the Global Product Marketing Lead for Customer Experience at Zoom. Thanks for joining us too. Michelle, how are you doing today?
Thank you, Charlie. I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, well, it's great to have you join us. And we all know that Zoom is very big on total experience, and especially through its tech and converging employee experience and customer experience technologies together. So kind of given that, what best practices do you recommend to your customers to make total experience a reality?
Sure. I talked to a lot of CX leaders, and I think Lee mentioned a lot of great use cases and problems and pain points and things that come up, and really a lot of those great benefits that you can get from having a TX platform and experience. And one of the number one things that we talk about in this AI-driven world today, where everyone's thinking about AI and CX leaders are thinking about how to drive ROI and optimization and cutting back and giving self-service and really meeting today's everything customer needs. It's very challenging as you think through that. And so my number one best practice would be it requires taking a holistic approach. And so Lee touched upon this, in a couple of different areas. It's not just thinking about how do I deliver better CX? That's a component and that will be an outcome. But if you're implementing AI and you're only putting it in one part of your contact center, you're going to have a disjointed experience. And it doesn't matter to the customer how great that first engagement is. It could be the best ever. They could get greeted and they could be super personalized. But if you can't solve their problem quickly, you immediately lost them. They're not happy. It didn't create the resolution that they were looking for. And so we believe it's really taking a look at your company, looking at it at a holistic approach, and really finding those ways that you can empower your agents. And a lot of the ways that Lee said, how do you make sure they are armed with what they need to be informed, to solve problems quickly, to be connected to the broader organization? That's one component. The other is really around how do you empower them? They should feel connected to their company. They should feel like they're valued. They want to have access to employee resources and be treated like an employee. So being able to invest in them, give them coaching, be able to give them that experience as well also plays into this completely, because we know great EX creates great CX and it will ultimately get to your customer. And then there's just the connection of the disparate systems across the board. Having a singular platform that you can leverage AI, incorporate all those data points, and really see the full customer journey and really understand what matters to them and how to hyper personalize and how to get that continuous feedback makes your contact center better and helps you really look at things and be able to solve more problems, identify more intents, not just in the contact center, but even being able to expand those out to other departments in your organization. Your marketing team can benefit from these insights. Your product team, your sales team can understand more and know how to, incorporate certain things. So it's a really critical thing when you're thinking about this to get that continuous feedback and then employee engagement, but you really have to look at things holistically and not just be solving for one piece of the pie.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, lots of really great points there. And I love the idea of kind of just taking insight from one part of the business. And because you do have that kind of converged communications platform, you can send it across to other stakeholders to make sure that you have that sort of wider view perspective in which to kind of base your decisions across the business. So lots of really great points there, Michelle. I don't know, Lee, if there's any other sort of best practices that you would maybe add on top of that, which we haven't already mentioned.
So in terms of other best practices, I think we talked about a kind of cross-functional collaboration, and I think that's a crucial one. And unified metrics so that we're getting feedback and insight from our work. That means that we're bringing that full circle and bringing that to the team. I think it's how the organizational leaders get visibility and get insight on where they start the journey with strategy and initiatives. It's very easy to set the business off and go, right, okay, so we consider employee, we consider our user experience, and we consider customer, and we want everyone to work together. But I think there's something for me about just not just setting off our teams to deliver that and enabling them to work together. I think there's something about the proximity of the leadership team. So how are the leadership team proximate to your employees and your customers? And we kind of talk about this as being the long walk. So there's many kind of practical things, like, do you take the long walk to your desk or the short walk? So when you take the long walk, it means you're walking through the contact center, you're listening to customer calls, you're hearing what employees have got to say, you're checking in with people. And because I think when you do that, you can very easily pick up the problems that are getting in the way for your workforce and for your customers, and hear that very firsthand. And that's an act of role modeling. So the long walk is a bit of a kind of obvious way of sort of demonstrating proximity. But how, as a leadership team and a set of leaders, do you go out and work in your retail stores occasionally, or actually take some calls from customers, or get on the chatbot? How often do you use your products? How often do you go through pain points that your customers have? So I'll give you a great example. In the water industry in the UK, I know a set of leaders that went and turned their water off for a whole weekend so that they could experience what it's like for customers when when water mains are either damaged or cut off. Now, what that actually gave that leadership team, that water company, was a whole host of things that they could do to improve the equipment that's put on their vans when they go out to incidents. It wasn't bottled water, it was wet wipes they found was the number one need of those customers. So I suppose I go off on a slight tangent and tell a story. But if you don't have proximity of the leaders to your employees, your user, and your customer experience, then actually the initiatives that you're firing off and focused on could be the wrong ones anyway. So you've done all this great work to create a structure and an ecosystem for total experience, but you're working on the wrong stuff. So I think leadership proximity is one of the biggest acts of role modeling, or it's one of the biggest acts that means that you get all of this right, and you're focused on the right things.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually do remember I used to go into quite a few contact centers, and I would always ask the leaders, like, "Oh, do you take calls yourself from time to time in the contact center to kind of to kind of have that experience?" And most said no, and that was always quite eye opening for me. So that proximity point, I think, Lee, is a particularly great one. But just to close off the conversation, Michelle, I want to bring this conversation back to what you're doing at Zoom. I don't know if you could speak a little bit too about brands that are really enthusiastic about this total experience concept, why they might want to consider Zoom as their kind of enterprise communications platform.
Absolutely. I would love to. So ultimately, our mission at Zoom is around connecting humans. And we know that better than anyone else. We've done that with our video products. We've done it with our phone products. And now we're revolutionizing and doing this with our CX solutions as well. And so it's really at the core of what we do. And we really truly believe that when you take the total experience and you empower employees to work happy and to be connected, and they're not just treated as agents who are replaceable, but actually employees who are invested in. And that's incredibly critical as you continue to see AI taking over and really being incorporated as part of a CX world. There's going to be a rise of self-service. And agents are going to really need to be focusing on more complex and urgent issues that are going to require more support. And they're going to be required to have a different set of skill set than maybe they have in the past. And so being able to invest in them and allow them to connect to people, to get questions answered quickly, to be empowered to engage with a broader organization and really break down that great divide is just so critical. You think about a use case example of, frontline workers or field workers, enabling an agent to not just have to be, victim to seeing what the latest and greatest, tracking notification that the customer has on their phone as well, but actually being able to contact that field worker or that field work agent. Where are you? Where are you at? And to be able to give the customer that real-time data, that's going to be so important as these brands are thinking about how do I differentiate in the future and how do I remain competitive? Because the reality is that is the expectation today. There are so many brands we could think about that are doing such a great job of this, hyper-personalized experiences, making it seamless and easy. And that's where the bar is. So whether or not that's something that's in your particular industry or your competitors are doing that, you might be crushing it out there. Customers still are going to continue to keep leveling up and raising the bar as all of these brands do. So from a Zoom perspective, we can offer a full suite within your contact center that helps unify your platform with our AI solutions that go across all of our disparate systems so you can grab insights. We also have our full employee experience platform, which allows agents to connect on platforms like employee engagement, like Workvivo, so they can get kudos and feel connected and understand what's going on across the broader organization. We have coaching solutions with quality management, so they're up to date on how they're doing and they can share stories and learn from each other. And all of this is in an interconnected system throughout our AI platform so that we're actually continuously learning. So anything we're getting from a great agent engagement or a great self-service engagement, we can learn, we can take those insights, and we can empower the entire contact center to benefit from them. So it's our mission, it's our passion. Hopefully you can hear that in my voice. It's something that we really, really care about, and it's really all about connecting and delivering great CX, and that's what Zoom does, and it has always done.
Absolutely. That was great, Michelle. And what I'll do for everybody who's watching is I'll put a link into the Zoom website. For anybody who wants to learn more about Zoom's CX and EX solutions and platform, unified platform, I should say, I can go and visit the website to learn more. But I will maybe end the conversation there because I think it's a great place to close off. But I do really want to thank both Lee and Michelle for joining me today. It's a great conversation. And I also want to thank you all for watching. Bye for now.